Hi, my name is Steve Bolton. I'm lead architect at dotCMS. I've been here for 2 years, and I come from a background of content management systems in general. I actually am not new to AI as well, so I probably had one of the earlier, if not the earliest, undergraduate course on AI that was available. Like 30 years ago, it showed my age. It was combined with computer science and psychology. So it was interesting because back then it was really like what we see now as neural networks, which has brought us to what we're at this point, was thought of as kind of a sideline of artificial intelligence. It's the hard thing used to be thought of as like playing a game of chess. Then we had the computers like Big Blue and stuff, which became very effective at doing those sort of tasks. There's a lot of statistics to them. They're difficult problems, but they're problems you can kind of solve. What it turned out in AI was the big problems, the ones we couldn't really solve, are the ones which we have, like visual perception and how we actually deal with those things. Early back then, I had my computer, an old 386 or whatever it was back then, on my desktop, running a neural network over the weekend, and nothing like it is now. And people really didn't expect them to do the capabilities that they kind of have at the moment. Things have changed so quickly in this, and the main change was the computers got more powerful. They could do more layers, add to the complexity of the problems they solve. Even from probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I actually redid a course in neural networks and AI that was looking at perception of and identifying images, and visual identification is a thing where you have the camera and it can identify faces, kind of thing. Even back then, there's a kind of AI we have where it is it's called the large language model, where it's really basically predicting text, the next word that comes along. So really what all the AI we're seeing at the moment is really just a very complex autocomplete. It's one way of thinking about it. But the capabilities of it and what it can actually do goes way beyond what we could ever have imagined, particularly in the amount of time that actually occurred. I created on that course a little model which would kind of build, I could give it text from an author, and it would create text which sounded like the author. But generally, even 3 or 4 years ago, it had a lot of repetitions. It wasn't perfect at all. Of course, with OpenAI and the change of just passing billions and billions of data points has allowed this exact same model to expand to us to be able to produce really the unbelievable is text that sounds like a real person and can kind of pull information from various sources together and make a good argument, but also can now create code, which I didn't think it would ever kind of get to that point that we can actually have, ask a question and have code be written. I've forgotten the name of the author, but it was written about architecture, that the printing press was the demise of architecture. And so the fact that people printed stuff, no one would need. Architecture was kind of the art form in here, and people didn't need to do that anymore. And all that happens is things change. Yes, we don't create the same style of architecture, but we do a lot more than we could do with a lot less. And so this is kind of another stepping stone. And so with the way we actually develop, we have to work with it, because the old style of programming is going to go away very quickly. If you are just skilled at algorithms, stuff which you might be taught for a Google interview, if that's all you can do, you're not going to do well in this new environment. As we kind of work with these tools, we have to understand how they work, as well as they're going to evolve with us. And there's a lot of change, a lot of products coming out, a lot of companies are starting up projects which are trying to take this to the next step as far as development is concerned. But even what we have at the moment with the ChatGPT-4, it has changed my work pattern entirely. There are things which I can do with it which would have taken me a lot longer before, or I would have not known how to do something, and I would not even started the topic because it feels like it's just too much of a challenge. Or I would make a mistake, and then I would find out, oh, go through a few iterations of the code, and then best practice. Oh, I should have known that best practice. It's always good looking back and sort of saying, it's like, oh, if only I'd known, I could have written that code better. It's always a learning process as we go through. As we kind of like develop these tools, I'm seeing it more as kind of like it's going to learn as we kind of learn. And so it's like having a kind of type of like an intern on your shoulder that's kind of there to discuss. And so you can't trust everything it says. It doesn't always get things right. And that's part of it. You should not take it as this is it, and I don't have to think about it. It should just change the way we think about the problem. When I have an idea in my head, I go, oh, but what about this? And so rather than going to Google and trying to find a particular article and then find the best thing, I will ask ChatGPT and I'll say, are there any better solutions to this? Have I thought about all the options? What about security? What about performance? And often it will fill in the gaps of stuff I may already know or knew part of, but it will kind of do that grunt work for me. And I can, rather than changing to a model of it providing you with the answers, it's all you're having to do is validate those answers. So it's a lot easier to say if something's wrong than it is to kind of create something from scratch to start with. And I think this is the way kind of authoring of content and other stuff can go. I mean, if you just take ChatGPT and try and create a blog post from it, yes, it'll create something, but it's going to be very generic because it's all it's doing is taking what everyone else knows and creating something which everyone else would write. What you actually want to do is create something which is tailored for what the message you're trying to get across. So the same thing is for the coding. If you're trying to code something which everyone else has written, then you're not really creating anything new. The problems we have as a company, as any company has, is trying to tailor what we have to the customer, the solution at hand. And so as for that, it's a great tool to really just save a lot of time we have actually thinking through the initial steps and validating, but it requires us to have the knowledge to be able to validate. But if you use it effectively, the tool can be used to also help you with that. So in the process of recent code I was doing on one of our platforms, basically I don't know all the tools. I know the concepts, but not all the tools available, and I'm not sure of the best practices. So it was a great way of basically validating those best practices. I knew the way it should be in general, and I knew what I wanted out of it, but I didn't know which exact route to get there. And so it is really like having a colleague, a partner on your shoulder, just to say, hey, how about this? What do you think about that? You may not agree with them, but it's good sometimes just to throw that out there, have that kind of working. So that's kind of one of the main ways I kind of see this changing. And the AI is going to definitely open up development for people who never would have got into development before. Tools going to be created to write programs just from typing some text without a single knowledge of a programming language. And this go great. It brings people in and allows people to do a lot more. ChatGPT now has a code interpreter in there. If you are into like doing maths or statistics or something, or you need to do something like that, it will actually write the code for you from what you're asking. It will tell you the statistical algorithm it's using. It will give you the answer and give you the result. So you don't need to know the statistics. It'll actually help you with that and write the code for you. A lot more of this is going to actually happen going forward. So as developers, isn't other jobs people are afraid of AI taking away from their job? To be honest, I see this as it's taking away the hard, tedious work you have to do as a developer, which is boring, which is not also the thing which is important. the syntax or how things in there. I don't care. I just want to say, write this in the best way. What's the best option? I want to write the best code. I don't care how it looks. I don't care, what it is in there. I want it to be usable. I can create it. I can develop it, and my colleagues can work with it, and we can build a product out of it. As much as AI is going to help people come into the market, it's not going to take away everyone's job as long as we are aware of being able to make use of it, because it just takes our development to the next level. It takes it so that we can do more. We can deliver more functionality to our customers. We can more quickly build up with, can be with less resources as well. So it's a much more efficient way of kind of working. We can create a lot more secure code because it's continuously checked to make sure that there's security in there. Performance issues can be created. You can put in error messages from system, and the AI can suggest you where the bug might lie. So it's going to save a lot of time. And all that does is allow us to then focus on what's really important for the business. Companies that do well with AI are going to be way more performant than companies who decide we're going to stick to existing processes and we're not going to use it, get rid of that thing. We're just going to develop. Developers do have to still have to understand the core concepts of software design. They have to understand how it's all kind of built together. At the moment, there is some limitations to the way the AI helps us, and it's all down to like the context the single message to the AI can contain. And so ChatGPT, this is extended, so it actually allows you to pass quite a bit to it. There are a lot of tools which actually specifically for coding kind of shrink down the information, so it's very specific to allow it to create better information. We can't pass our entire code base and have every single line of text in there. So and understand that. But this is improving. So there are products out there which allow you to extend what ChatGPT has, and to be able to really just shrink down knowledge of your code base into its pure concepts that the AI can kind of understand. And then it can combine that with its global knowledge and then answer specific questions about your code base. So if your question is around an individual file or maybe a group of files, then that can work very well. But at the moment, I could not say, create a content management system and it's going to create it from scratch. It's just, it's not going to work. And also I can't say about the product, even with some of these other tools, find all the bugs in our system or find all the security. Yes, there are specific tools that can help with some of these things, but it doesn't understand every single line in the code base. This is going to improve. This is actually going to get bigger, and I suspect that at some point you will be able to do those things. And we can ask broad questions about our product. I've done that with some tools, and you can get some very useful results. But it's looking at like a snapshot of some of the code. It's looking at parts of it and not the full kind of thing. And it's going to automate a lot of jobs. But with any automation, like robots in a warehouse, you have to have people managing the warehouse. You got to have people making the decisions. You have to build upon that. There's always going to be a job to do. Any company that just clicks on a button and then creates a product might work once or twice, but is not innovative in any way. And so we have to keep innovating, building, but we have to kind of use these tools because they are going to really excel the pace of what we can actually achieve, which is going to help us to actually deliver more on what the customers need as far as the product's concerned. The actual development of the AI is really down to taking these language models and really tailoring it with the information that you have, that you want questions either answered to or creation of. And so there's plenty of areas kind of in the products with like helping to build out. But with content management itself, AI can help. And I've asked questions before about designing a content item for you can say a press release, but you could also specify a different item. It can then help you suggest kind of the fields and in that content type that you might want. The AI can even help with so creating layouts and templates, and it's good regardless of whatever structure that is. And so we can give it examples of good best practices, and then really customers eventually will be able to ask, I want to do this in a very much natural language form, and it will then suggest or advise on both the style and design of that, but also the layout of the content behind it for the editing. Now, again, as I said, for the development, really the management of the content management system is really just, it's a development system in itself. It's just at a different level. We're developing templates, content types, and the websites on top of the underlying platform. So we can use it in exactly those same ways in how we want to design the site, what we want it to achieve, how we should break that down. One thing the AI has been very good at is sometimes it's the most difficult thing sometimes, and it seems the most simple, is what do I call something? It's like, what do I call this method? What do I call this function? It's just like, what's it actually doing? Or another example is like you're trying to think of a company name or something like that. It's just like, well, everyone's used that. What do I want it to see? It can be very good at actually, suggesting these things that it may have just taken you a while to go through. There are 100 different solutions, but it's much easier to say, yeah, that one works. I'll go with that. And so that's really the way a lot of this is going to end up. Is going to help us to actually break down those processes which may have been hard to do or hard to start up. It's like, it's difficult to say, where do I start on a template? What do I want this to do? It's much easier to have, well, create me a basic template with 2 columns and a header. And I want to have the header in this color, or, you can describe that. And then go, oh, now add this, or change this, or modify this, or I want to add another field that is press release. So this is not exactly where we are at the moment with the product at the moment. This is just the way content management in general is going to evolve, so that we don't have to no longer worry about, like, when I add I want to display another field or a description in this block in here. It's going to know that, oh, that gets added to this type, and it's a new field in there. So that's at one level, is the developing of the templates, developing of the content types and the structure of the content where AI can help us. Then there's the next level of that, which is then when we get into the actual authoring of the content. So these are often different people, different skill sets. And so I'm adding in a press release, I'm adding a blog post or a product description. Now the AI is going to help us to basically be able to look at the fields we have, which may be the data, pure data we have. This is the price, and these are the features which we've got on our product, and then create a nice description that may fit into our style we use on a company basis, and use the information it has about the other fields in that product to create it. Now, as I said, that can create a kind of very generic piece of content, but it's a lot easier to look at that and go, ooh, yeah, that doesn't sound right, and either suggest, can you change it with this style or this format, or how it isn't there, or manually make the changes, because you know better. At the end of the day, AI is not our overlord. It doesn't control us. We shouldn't kind of accept it for what it is. We are the boss. We tell it what to do, but it is very good at really just pointing us in the right direction. Are we thinking in the right way? Is this correct? What are the best practices? And that works both from every level of development, whether it's right down at the product level as we build up, to the layer which we have for templating and content types as a company uses those to build their particular website, to then the content itself, whether that is managed from external data sources, or is created by an actual author, or or is things like language translation, which is improved so much as well automatically. All these different areas, they all get impacted by the AI, and all of that progress is all a good thing to kind of improve speed and efficiency, and not take away jobs, but to give us power, give us control, give us the ability to to really do our jobs. We none of us like doing the boring stuff. If I told you, it's like, well, your job now, I'm going to ask you to go and copy text from one cell in a spreadsheet and put it into the other cell, and you need to do this for 1 million rows. It's like, you're not going to have fun. But now the AI can work with the charts and stuff, and you can even ask it questions to manipulate its data. You don't have to know about formulas and all this stuff. But you do have to know at what level you're working at, what level of knowledge you have. And so if you want to use a spreadsheet and you don't want to know about formulas, great, you don't need to. But at some level, someone has to. So, and so what we can't do is raise things to a certain level where no one understands how the base of it works. So everyone has to kind of use it, their own tools at the level where that actually is. And so you're always going to get kind of a raising up, and then people filling in gaps in kind of where that knowledge is, people using whichever tools they want to make whatever job they want to be effective and useful. And at the end of the day, we're all in the company to basically create a good product that the customers actually want and has features that they want. So any ways which we can actually deliver that and better and more quickly deliver fixes or updates or new features to the customer that matches what they want, then it's a win-win.